Okay, hi everyone, it's Alan here. Yeah, I've recently been doing some DJ sets, live streams on Facebook, and after that I kept getting quite a few messages, people asking me about the studio, so I thought I would do a little small studio tour for you. So I'll try and keep it as brief as possible, but as you can see I do have quite a lot of gear in here, so anyway, here we go. I think what we'll do is we'll start with this beast here. This is the new Behringer Poly D, which is basically it's a polyphonic synth. Well, not really real polyphonic, it's more, there's a lot of discussions over the polyphonic functions of it, but anyway, for me, I don't get involved in these kind of discussions. For me, it's about the sound and the functionality. So yeah, it's an absolutely amazing synth. It's completely analog with 4 oscillators, and the sound of it is just, the bottom end is just so fat. It's just, yeah, it's great for bass sounds, but it's also great for doing lovely pad sounds, because that's the great chorus section, which is based on the Juno chorus from Roland. It has a distortion section as well, but I don't like it because it kind of kills the sound a little bit. It's a bit too much, so I don't use that. Anyway, let's not hang up too much on one synth. Let's move on to the rack gear that I'm using at the moment. I've got Quasi MIDI Technox here, which was quite a cool thing in its day. Basically just, it's a ROM player, but it had some cool sounds in it. Then we have these, absolutely love these. These are the Oberheim Matrix 1000. It's digital oscillators, but with the analog filter, and I just love these. I've got them paired up so that I have 12 voice, and then also stereo as well, because they're normally they're only monophonic. Then we have the Waldorf Attack, which is for drum sounds. Then we have the Waldorf Microwave 2, which is the follow-up to the original Microwave. The A version, which had the Curtis chips in it, was amazing, but they're really expensive now. And then we have the EMU Morpheus. I actually quite liked this at the time when it came out, because it had a different kind of sound. They called it Z-Plane synthesizer, but I did like it, and I did use it quite a lot in the 90s. And then we come on to this. Is one of my favourite synths. This is a digital synth that just changed the world of digital synths, and it's the Roland JD800, and I just love it, and I love the way you can, you know, it has this analog feel about it, although it's a full digital synth. I actually have 2 of them. There's another one just up the top there's another one. Anyway, so moving on, let's start up the top here. We have the Korg Poly 6. This one has the Kiwi 6 upgrade in it, which gives it a load of different new functions, and also gives it MIDI functionality. Then we move on to this amazing 70s Yamaha CS15 analog, monophonic analog synth. It's basically 2 synths in one, because you have 2 oscillators, but each oscillator has a separate filter section and separate VCA sections, and also separate envelopes, and then you can combine the 2, and it just gives you this really nice warm analog sound. Now move down onto this. This is a Dave Smith OB6, which was actually developed together with Tom Oberheim, and it's a modern Oberheim, and it's completely analog. It also has analog oscillators and analog filter, and I just love the sound of this. It's so warm and deep, and I use this mainly for nice pad sounds and yeah, some nice lead sounds and bass sounds as well. Let's move on to these. These are the Behringer TD3s, these 2 here. These are basically the clone, the copy, the fake, call them whatever you want, of the Roland TB303. I think they're great. They cost 150 bucks each, and the sound is great. So it's your choice. Buy the original for over $2,000, or buy these for 150 each, where you can't tell the difference in the mix anyway. Fact. So then we move on to this. This is the, oh, it's not switched on. Let's switch them on. This is the Prophet 600 from Sequential. This is actually a great synth, but it did have a few problems. It had very sluggish envelopes, and it had up the filter. When you turned up the filter, you could hear it stepping. But there's an upgrade for this, which is the Gleegly upgrade, which I've put into it now, which solves the sluggish envelopes, makes them a lot faster now, and also solves the problem with the cutoff, but also gives it some other interesting functions. I've modded this one as well. It now has a Fatar keybed in it, which is really nice to play on. It's not as clunky as what it was before, and basically poor man's Prophet 5. Yeah. So if you're looking for that Prophet 5 sound, it's not quite there, but it does the job. Moving on to this is a modern Moog. This is the Moog Sub 37, which is a paraphonic full analog synth. I love this for sound design. It has so many features, and it has this absolute killer filter on it. And I just love this. It's great for doing low end sounds, but it's also great for doing lead sounds. You can actually see the one preset. I don't know if you can read it on the display. It says bass terror. Anyway, this is one of my favourite synths in the studio. This is the Oberheim Expander. A lot of people didn't like this because it was very complicated to program, especially the modulation matrix, but that's what I love about it. It has a very complex modulation matrix where you can do great things with it. But it also has, this is also fully analog. It has the analog oscillators and analog multi-mode filter, and the multi-mode filter in this is just, there's no other synth sounds like this. I wish I had the bigger brother of this, which is the Oberheim Matrix 12, which is basically two of these with a keyboard, but they're extremely rare, and they're getting quite expensive now. I mean, this is as it is at the moment, is quite an expensive synth, but like I said, not popular because people don't really like the programming of it. Anyway, so let's move on very quickly now to this. This is a Korg Delta. This is also a 70s synth, but it has two sections to it. It has a string section and it has a synthesizer section, and I've actually modded this. It has the La La Land MIDI function in it now, and I love the sound. I love the string sound of this. It's nice and warm, and then when you run it through the phasers, I'll show you the phasers later, you get this really nice sound from it. Next we have the Yamaha CS10. CS10 is basically half a CS15. So the CS15, I said earlier, it's basically two synths in one that you can combine together, and this is basically then one of them. So it has the same oscillator, same filter, same envelopes, and same VCA. Yeah, but I like it. I really do. I like it. I love the sound of it. It's nice and deep. But again, this is monophonic. Another monophonic synth from the 70s, Korg MS10, which is the little brother of the MS20. These are great. They're great for doing sort of sci-fi sounds, creature sounds, and that kind of thing. So they have a great filter in them. Then here we start now with the drums I use. This is the TR606. Has a great bass drum, great hi-hats. You can heavily mod these as well, so you can get the bass drum to sound like the original 808 bass drum. But I've done one mod to this, and that's for the individual outputs, for the individual sounds, instead of only having it on a mono output. Then we move on to the Behringer RD8. This is the Behringer clone of the famous Roland TR-808. I like it. I like the sound. It's built quite well, and it also has the individual outputs, and it, for the money that you're paying for this, you can't hear the difference in the mix compared to the original, which costs over 3,000, I think. So anyway, moving on. Here we have the Roland TR-707. I like the TR-707. It has a great bass drum for house sounds, but also has a great hi-hat, and I love the crispiness of the clap on this. So I do actually use this quite a lot, and it also has the individual outputs as well, which means you can process the individual sounds instead of only having them on the stereo output. This is another 80s drum machine. This is the EMU Drumulator. Great 80s sounds. I've actually modded this one as well. It's got two switches on the back, so I can load more sounds instead of having to change the EEPROMs. But the basic sounds on this, they're just typical 80s disco sounds. Yeah, and I like this. I use this quite a lot actually. So yeah, moving on. Yeah, again, my second JD800. Now move on to this. This is the synth that I would never get rid of. This is the Roland Jupiter 6. All the hype is around the Jupiter 8. I do understand it in a way, but I prefer the Jupiter 6 over the 8. The 8 is nice and creamy, it's lush, and it sounds clean and it fits into every track and every song without big effort. But this year, the Jupiter 6, I just feel I can get more out of the Jupiter 6. It's a little bit rougher, but it can sound nice and lush as well when you want it to. And yeah, and this one is also modded with the Europa upgrades, which gives it loads of new functions as well. But yeah, this really is this is the synth that will stay with me. If there's a fire, I'll grab the Jupiter 6. Anyway, then we have here, this was extremely popular in its day, which is the Roland Juno 106. Digital oscillators, analog filter. This one's heavily modded as well. I've done the Kiwi upgrade on this. I've put the wooden sides on it. Normally they're plastic. Yeah, the Kiwi gives it an extra envelope for the filter, and I've also done the LEDs, changed the LEDs to blue, the display to blue. Has no effect on the sound, it just looks good. But anyway, moving down onto my second Poly 6. Yeah, I love the sound of the Poly 6. It's also has a nice creamy sound to it. And this one is this has the TurboTech Motor Poly upgrade, which also gives it extra functions, not as many as the Kiwi 6, but it still gives it a lot of improvement, and also gives it MIDI as well. Yeah, so we'll move down to here. This is a sequential 6-track. Also a nice little analog synth with a 6-track sequencer, which was quite the thing in its days. But I really do like the sound of this as well. It's difficult to program because you have to go through the program parameters, but you can get an external editor for it. But nah, I like it just the way it is. Move down here. I think this was one of the most popular synths in the 90s. This is the Roland JP8000. I don't think there's any trance track from the 90s out there that doesn't have the sound of the JP8000 on it. Yeah, and it was the Super Saw wave. That's what made it unique at the time for its sound. But it does lovely pad sounds, and it does lovely bass sounds and lead sounds. But it's pure digital. This is a pure digital synth, just like the JD800 up there. It's pure digital. So yeah, let's move along here. Yeah, no space for this. This is a sequential multi-track, which is very similar to the sequential 6-track. Also has a multi-track sequencer, but the filters sound slightly different, and I like it, but just no space for it at the moment. So I'll move on here. This must be one of my oldest synths. This is the Korg micro preset, and it's very basic. It has a bit of a filter function, and it has preset sound, so that you can't program much on it. And it has a built-in speaker. This is the SP version. But this was made famous by bands like OND, Enola Gay, and stuff like this. It was done on one of these. Hold on, I think I've got the preset. Yeah, hold on. See if I can play it. No. Hold on. Ah. There you go. That is the actual sound that they used on Enola Gay. But also other up and coming electronic bands at the time, they all had the Korg micro preset. And then I've got a couple of guitar pedals here that I actually use for the synths. So I've got an chorus ensemble pedal from Boss, the Metal Master distortion, 2 Boss distortion pedals, and this is what I said before. These are the phaser pedals. These are the small stone phasers. And I love putting the vintage string sounds through these, because it gives you that kind of Jean-Michel Jarre feel about it with the strings. It gives you that movement in the strings that I quite like. Yeah, mainly I use the phasers with this is the Behringer VC340 vocoder, which is also a clone of the Roland vocoder, but it also has this string section. And these are analog strings coming out of this thing, and they're so warm and they have such a lovely movement in them, and then putting them through the small stone gives it that little bit extra. Yeah, moving on to here, this is the, yeah, also I can put my vocals through this and it sounds like a robot, a bit like the Kraftwerk thing these days, in the days. So move on here, this is a Waldorf KB37, which is basically a keyboard, and this here is actually empty. Here you can put in a combination of Eurorack modules for a modular system, and then you have all the functions here with the sequencer. But I've decided to put the Studio Electronics Tonestar 8106 in it, together with the Behringer Model D. The Tonestar, this is basically an ARP 2600 oscillator with Jupiter 6 filter and envelopes, and the two of these combined together, I use this for bass sounds because it sounds great, but the quality of this Waldorf keyboard is amazing. It's a Fatah keyboard in it actually. Yeah, so let's move on. Here, I've actually just bought this recently. This is the new Roland Jupiter XM. The smaller version of the Jupiter X. This is the first new digital synth that I've bought in a long time, and I like it. It's great. It has great functions. It has different sound engines in it. It has a Jupiter engine, Juno engine, the GX engine from the GX3P, SH engine from the SH101, the XV, which was an expander module in the 90s, and the RD, which was the famous piano from Roland. But it has all these different other functions. You can do different scenes, different combinations of the sounds, and it also has the ARP in it as well. But it also has a drum section as well, which is quite cool. And you can get it to run on batteries, and actually has a built-in speaker as well, which is so you can hear the. It has a pretty good filter in it as well. But yeah, anyway. Let's move on. Modular. Oh god, modular. Yeah, I've actually reduced my modular. My modular was huge about 2 years ago. It was nearly, this whole wall here was all modular a couple of years ago, and it just, yeah, it got too much because modular is just it's an infection. And you just keep going, keep buying new modules. But I started realizing I wasn't producing any music with it. It was just experimenting, and it started to get quite frustrating because I wasn't producing any new tracks. So I decided to sell it all off and keep what I actually use from the modular. So I like the Cubic Chord, I like the IntelliGel Atlantis, and I love this. This is the IntelliGel Metropolis sequencer, which is great. And then I've got a couple of other filters. This is a 303 filter. This is a Korg MS-20 clone filter. And this is a Minimoog ladder filter, yeah, low pass filter. And then we come here to the rest of the modular. Well, these are semi-modular. These are the Moog Mother 32s. I really like these. Are nice deep sound. And then I have here as well, I've got a couple of the mini mods. This is AGH synth. I've got the oscillator and the contour generator. This is based on the Minimoog. And then I've got the Erica synth modules down here too. So yeah, that's really all I've got left of the modular. Thank God. Anyway, moving on here. This is the Behringer clone of the Pro 1, Sequential Pro 1. I think they've done a great job cloning this. Yes, I do have a lot of the Behringer stuff, but for me in the studio it's great, it's reliable, and it all sounds great. And yeah, so anyway, it's a big discussion about the whole Behringer thing, but I just don't want to get involved in it. For me, it's about the music, and I don't blame my tools. If I do shit music, I don't blame the tools for it. So yeah, everyone's choice. If I choose to buy Behringer, leave me to it. If I choose to buy a Moog, which I love as well, then leave me to make that decision, because it is, at the end of the day, it's my decision. So anyway, moving on, and again, here we have another Behringer, which is the MS-101. This is the clone of the SH-101. Great sound. I mean, there's not much difference between this and the original. What was disappointing though is the step sequencer doesn't have as many steps as what the original did, and then for some strange reason they built in this FM modulation, which I don't like, because for me, yeah, it's just it's not part of the character of the original 101, so I don't use it. Then we have this. This is for me the best clone that Behringer have done. It's the Behringer Odyssey. which is a clone of the Art Odyssey. And the quality of this thing is absolutely brilliant. It's a proper metal case like the original was. The only thing I don't like about it, but you can switch these off, and that's the built-in Clark Technic FX. But this part here, the main part, the part that counts for me, is absolutely brilliant. It sounds really good. Then we move here. This is actually not mine. This is a very old Roland SH2. I've actually got this here from my buddy. Because it's not working properly, and I do all the repairs to all the synths myself, so I'm just checking it through from him to see what's wrong with it, and then I'll get it repaired and restored. Yeah, this is my vocal rack here. So I have when I'm recording vocals, so I've got the SPL Gold mic, Bellari dual compressor, and the Joe Meek Q1 channel strip. And that's it. That's all it really needs, because all the other sound processing is all done with I do it all with software and plugins, which I'll briefly go through with it in a second once I get over that way. So yeah, and I have my analyzers up there. I don't know why I still have the bearing analyzer. I actually bought that just as an analyzer, and then I bought the bigger one because getting old, glasses, the eyes are getting worse. So the bigger one is better. So I don't really need the top one. Anyway, coming over here, this is the TC Electronic. This is the hardware controller for the software effect plugins. Then we have here, this is the Console 1. This is basically a mixer channel strip where you can, this is extremely flexible here. It's basically a controller where I can control all the different plugins, equalizer plugins, compressor and all this, and it basically just works like a normal mixer channel. And then I can split here between 40 channels. So yeah, this is quite cool. Here we come to the main part. This is where I always sit and work, and this is what I'm always looking at when I'm producing. So as you can see, I'm using Logic Pro X. I tried using Cubase, but nah, I'll stick with my Logic, and they've just done a great update. But this is the Raven MTI, which is a touchscreen, and for me this is great working, because working with the mouse all the time, especially when you're editing audio tracks, or when you're editing plugins and stuff like this, with the mouse it can be quite tedious at times. So yeah, here with the finger I can just, directly onto the parameters, yeah, and change everything. Here I can open a channel EQ. Hold on, open a channel EQ, and then with the finger I can actually change the frequencies then, instead of having to use the mouse. So yeah, and it just makes things for me a lot easier to use. Yeah, and then I've got my trackball, because like I said, I don't have much space here anyway. Should I do a little bit of advertising here? Anyway, then this TC Electronic analyzer as well. It gives me the view of the stereo field and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and then you probably notice I don't have a mixer in the studio. Yeah, so for the simple reason I use the simple reason is I don't have space. Plus, I actually love the quality of these. These are the UED Apollo 16 audio interfaces, and they both have each 16 analog input channels. So all my synths and all my gear is all rigged up through, you can see here, it's all rigged up through Patchbase. Yeah, so and then all rigged up through here, so I can patch all the sounds through into the 32 channels, which keeps me very flexible. But the UADs, they also have their own DSPs, so all the processing for the UAD plugins is all done here, instead of in the Mac, and taking away processor power from the Mac, so I don't get any overloads, which is great. And then we move on to, yeah, this is the Mackie Big Knob. Seriously, this is the Mackie Big Knob, because it has a big knob, and this big knob is for the volume. But this is basically the control center for the for the different speakers. Go into speakers in a second, and also the different inputs. Yeah, here are my speakers. I've actually got another set. I've got a set Genelec 1031As, but I've got them in a different room set up, so I can once I've finished the mix in here, I'll go and listen to it on the 1030As in the other room. But for working, I love the Dynaudio acoustics. They're really nice. They have a very nice clear sound. but when I'm working long hours, I work on these Genelec 8020s because they're very clean and they're very good on the ear as well, so you don't get any headaches or that if you're listening to them for hours and hours and hours, whereas other speakers tend to do that. But again, it's different. People have different ears, different tastes, different hearing. So, but this is what works for me, the setup that I have here at the moment. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's it really. I don't think I've missed anything. Oh yeah, here I've got a couple of old compressors down here, and a noise gate that I use for some of the analog synths. Right down the bottom, you can't see it really clearly, is a vintage Dynacord reverb, which I use in combination with the Korg MS-10, and it gives it a really nice wide sound. So yeah, that's two pieces of vintage equipment that work well together. Yeah, so I guess that's about it really. Well, yeah, the heart of the studios. Here's my old trusty 2013 iMac, and it's still great, still works, but I'm actually looking to maybe possibly upgrade now, but as long as it's working, then I should be fine. This is the Complete Control S25 from Native Instruments. This is basically a controller for a huge software package that I'm using less and less and less and less. I don't know why the Native Instruments stuff is just getting not interesting anymore for me, so I might actually get rid of that to free up some space for something else. Anyway, so that's it. That's the studio at the moment. Anyway, I've got about another 20 odd 30 synths outside and up in the attic, and what I tend to do is that once I've finished up a track, as you can see, the JD800 here is not permanently fixed here, so I actually just change it out and bring down other synths and plug them in and use them. So yeah, that's basically it. I hope you've enjoyed the studio tour. I might actually do a production live stream, but it depends. Sometimes I'm slow, sometimes I'm very quick in the production, and I don't want to bore you for 10 hours and not seeing any results. So yeah, maybe I might just stick to doing the DJ live streams, which yeah, coming up I think on the 6th of June I think it is. You can get me live on Shiny People, but I'll be posting up the link on Facebook. Yeah, I think that's, yeah, I think it is the 6th of June at I think 8 PM on Shiny People. But like I said, I'll post the link. Okay, have a lovely evening, and I hope you've enjoyed the tour. Alright, bye bye.